electricity and internet, that hope you have stayed safe and your family and your friends are also safe and warm. It's not worth trying to get out there and slip and slide because your emergency room bill will cost a lot more than whatever you thought you were saving money on. This is our January 2024 Cross Timbers Chapter Naturalist meeting. I'm going to ask everybody to hit mute. Please hit mute. And let's see, announcements are that we are very happy for you to pay your $25 dues. Either pay by check, and I just put the treasurer's address, name and address into the chat, Deanne McGinnis, or you can go on our website, scroll down till you see pay. It says PayPal, but you do not have to use PayPal. You can use your own credit card. Also, if you still have some December hours that you have not yet recorded, please do that as soon as possible. Our membership folks are working hard to get everybody's hours totaled, and because we need to know who's made milestones like 250 hours, 500 hours, 1,000 hours. There's some higher this year, I've heard. We need to make sure that our class of 2022 and class of 2023 is getting certified so that we can give credit to everyone who earns the credit. So please, if you have not put in your December hours yet, please put them in. We're starting on our 2024 hours. All right. I think that's all I have to say right now. We'll hold other announcements till afterwards. Mary Beth, would you like to take over? You are host, so if you just go ahead, Mary Beth, that would be wonderful.
Okay, we are very happy to have Amy Martin with us tonight, although we would rather have the full Amy Martin experience in person, but we'll just have to do with what we've got. And we're glad to have you agree to speak to us on Zoom. Anyway, she has written this wonderful book all about DFW, and she's going to talk to us about never seeing North Texas nature the same way again tonight. She's a member of the North Texas Master Naturalist chapter next door over in Dallas. And you probably read her bio. She's been a writer for 40 years and a journalist. She built a career on the topics of entertainment and the environment. Those are two of my favorite topics right there. She's also a senior feature reporter for Green Source. I learned from Amy about the Trinity River and about Ned Fritz. She's working on a book about Ned Fritz and his efforts he led a coalition of people to make sure that the Trinity River stayed wild, because there had been an effort since the 1890s all the way up into the 1970s to change the Trinity River from DFW down to the coast, take out the little crooked parts of the river and make it straight and dig it out and get rid of all the nature and make it a channel for ships and barges. Wouldn't that have been something? But that was stopped by Ned Fritz and several other people. And she's working on a book about that, right?
Yes.
In your free time. She has a website called Moon Lady. I told you about that. So how many talks have you given about wild DFW, Amy?
I'm a little over 70. I think this might be number 71.
Wow.
So walks and talks. Yes.
Wow. So it's really easy. And how many more will you give?
I'll be doing 1 or 2 a week, probably for the next few months. And where I'm shifting now is I'm going to start talking more to businesses and municipalities. So I have my first municipal talk this Thursday with the Fort Worth Park Department.
Wonderful. That
Yeah,
is great.
gotta take the message away beyond the choir.
Yeah, I was thinking that exactly. So, and this publisher has several books about nature. And are you going to talk to us about how you were approached?
I can mention that now, and it was
Okay.
just that they have a series of wild books called, for instance, Wild LA was the first. They have a Wild Miami, Wild Philly, something wild in Utah, and now they have Wild Houston has been released last fall. And so they were looking for a writer for Wild Dallas, and people kind of, because my Green Source DFW work, they said, you want Amy for this. And I chatted with them and I said, well, Dallas really isn't enough. We really need to expand it to Fort Worth. And then if we include Denton County and Collin County, then we'll get some really nice big nature preserves. And that way we have a little bit of everything. So they let me expand it, and it ended up getting called Wild DFW. The cover artist, by the way, is a muralist out of Fort Worth. Her name is Marielle Guzman. And if you've seen colorful murals in Southside, that's her work.
Okay, well, you are welcome to share your screen, and thank you, Amy. Take it away.
Okay. Tell me if it's viewing right.
Yes, there, it's coming.
Okay,
Yes,
that looks right.
yes. And again, to the audience, write your questions down, and when Amy's done, we'll go through the questions.
Great. Yes, it was released by Timber Press on back in July. Timber Press is kind of notable for being the publisher of Doug Tallamy. So Bringing Nature Home and all of those books, those are by him. Also, they've done a number of guides, and Wildflowers of Texas by Michael Eason is also on their repertoire. So this is a lot of people, and this talk kind of reinforces that. A lot of people think that this is a hiking book, and it does have 25 adventures where I take walks through places in North Texas, that 4-county area, with people who knew the places the best. So most hiking books are blow by blows about you go here and see that and go there and see that, and instead these adventures are more like little short stories about what it's like to experience these places. So for instance, I did river legacy drawing beds with Charlie Amos and Zach Chapman, who are here on the feed, and I had never been to the River Legacy drawing beds, and what an experience it was. I learned more from Charlie in an hour and a half about birds than I had in such a long time. And then Zach and I just had a delightful time at the River Legacy, just walking around and sitting by a creek and talking and getting to know each other. Kate Morgan, who's also on the line here, she and I did we did Fort Worth Nature Center together, and I got to see a side of Fort Worth Nature Center that was really not one I expected to see. We went through bottomlands and wet woods, and then we hoofed it on over to the Cross Timbers Trail, and it was just a glorious day, even if my feet took a week to recover from that hiking experience. So there are hiking things in there, but they're more like a portrait of a community is what arises from those 25 hiking adventures. The first half, the first third, basically, is a guide to natural history and ecology of North Texas. So it's almost a concentrated version of the Texas Master Naturalist curriculum. And in fact, you'll recognize some of the folks in there, like Sam Kieschnick and others. And it's really, to me, this is a gift to people who, particularly those who have just moved here. And it lets them know where they've lived, where they've moved to. Even just the chapter on the Trinity is such an eye opener, how each fork is so different from all of the other forks. There's a chapter on weather with David Finfrock, geology, which is fantastic chapter. Citizen science, nature at night, native plants, invasive plants, a long chapter about prairies. It's really quite a fantastic section. And then there's a middle section, which is a field guide to plants and animals and fish and insects. And again, there's excellent field guides out there. So I didn't want to tell you the gestation cycle of a cormorant or anything like that. Instead, I wanted to give you interesting tidbits that you could share with people at parties, for instance, like that armadillos float. That's how they got here from Mexico. And that armadillos can also hold their breath and make themselves sink and walk on the bottoms of creeks and rivers. And that's how they get away from predators. So there's interesting tidbits like that. So I think I've pointed out everybody who's here, and I'm going to kick off. And I am so grateful to the people of Cross Timbers and to the Fort Worth Native Plants and the Fort Worth Native Prairies. I had to get to learn Fort Worth. It was a real challenge to get to know a whole new ecosystem, a whole new rounds of plants and animals. And I have really come to fall in love with Fort Worth and its people, and did an op-ed in December for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram about this. I am completely captivated by y'all, the community, the landscape, everything. I'm just in love. So let's get started with the talk. So there's no nature in North Texas, huh? I hear this all the time. Yes, seriously, this is 10 minutes from downtown Dallas. When I go to this place near the Buckeye Trail, I see deer, pelicans, herons, and more just wandering around. This is 10 minutes from downtown Fort Worth, right off of I-30. Heck, this is within the Denton city limits. This rare prairie remnant is in the middle of Plano, of all places, and it is just lovely. And this is just 2 miles away from that prairie, both off of Rowlett Creek. So as Wild DFW states, North Texas isn't known for its nature. It gets lots of dissing. And this book aims to change that. Our nature is not over there in remote wilderness. It's here, hidden along rivers and creeks, tucked away on the fringes of reservoirs, or on rocky hilltops or floodplains, wherever development was unfeasible. More from Wild DFW. Abandon the idea that outdoors means majestic mountains, deep canyons, and ocean views. North Texas nature fosters a profound intimacy that is best experienced close up, with unfolding layers that invite lingering exploration. Nature here is not a distant vista that you admire. It's something you immerse yourself in and become a part of, while it becomes a part of you. So let's take a tour and see it all. I'm going to zip fairly quickly through a couple of dozen places in those 4 counties, but you have to promise me this, is that you're going to go to at least 6 of these places that you've never been before. Pinky swear. I want to see all those pinky swears. All right, let's get going. We're going to go west to east, and we're going to start in Tarrant County. The breathe is to remind me to breathe because I talk like a fire hose. All right, furthest west is the Fort Worth Nature Center, 3,600 acres inside the city limits on Lake Worth. Y'all know it well. Over 20 miles of hiking trails. This is where you take your out-of-state guess. 2 words, bisons and alligators. They'll always remember you. There's got medium grass prairies and savannas with big sky energy. There's deep bottomland forests. There's deeply ravined upland woods with white-tailed deer everywhere you look. There's western cross timbers, hard to get in this area. Sprawling lotus marsh, something for everyone, and so much wildlife. But there's also hundreds of acres of Fort Worth prairie and medium grass prairie on the east flank of Benbrook Lake on U.S. Army Corps of Engineers land. Who knew? Did y'all know? It's a fantastic place. Ever grateful to Suzanne Tuttle for turning me on to that. Because if you go 30 yards in, it is totally frontier. The Chisholm Trail used to cut right through there. You can close your eyes and practically hear the stampedes. But sadly, this parcel here, it doesn't exist anymore. It's now a college campus. I tell you, flat land gets no respect. Grasslands, no respect. So inside East Fort Worth are hilltop prairies with views for miles and the best wildflower displays in North Texas. But if you trample those flowers for a photo shoot or some stupid gender reveal party, well, Don Young is going to have a few words for you, and he's arranged it to where he can actually get you arrested. What a guy. But also, when you're at Tandy Hills, don't miss the beautiful riparian corridor. It does mean you have to go to the bottom of the hill and get back up again, but it's worth it. This preserve here is in southwest Arlington, and it's a perfect example of Eastern Cross timbers. It is absolutely perfect. It's on a thing called a cuesta, which is a limestone formation. Also a perfect example of a cuesta. There are twisted and gnarly, tenacious post oaks and blackjack oaks mixed with little intimate prairies. There are 60 acres with 2 miles of trails that afford beautiful views of 2 ponds. There are amazing rocks with the best lichen displays up at the top on the iron ore knob. And I think you and me, the chapter, should go on a walk there, say in March, do a walk together since we didn't get to be together here. So the River Legacy Science Center in Arlington, it's North Texas's most charming nature center. Don't forget the wide trails that you have at this place. I will stop by River Legacy when I-30 traffic is insane and just go take a walk because I can walk there in my business clothes. So it's a really beautiful little place, and it needs more of your love. It needs more of your body visiting there. Okay. Wetlands in the middle of Arlington? You bet. This one always surprises people, outside naturalists, and it's incredible. There are so many wading birds, shorebirds, and waterfowl fall through spring when there's water, because it's kind of dependent on rainfall, and sometimes the water department removes some of the water and it gets pretty darn dry. I wish they would treat this as the nature tourism hotspot that it has the potential to be. But what I really like about this is I've been sending people there to hike because it's surrounded by tall dikes. And so once you're inside of there, it's a lost world. You don't have to be a birder to go there. It's a great place for nature exploration, especially if you go there in the mornings and there's lots of mammalian wildlife running around. Okay. Let's go on to Denton County, which is kind of under siege right now by development. Northeast of Denton is Ray Roberts Lake State Park. It is one of the most visited state parks in Texas. There are nearly 3,800 acres of Eastern Cross timbers and prairie. But yet in the middle of the Isle de Bois unit, there is a patch of pine forest because nature really doesn't care about our definitions. There are 30 miles of trails there. 30 miles of trails. But what you have to do is look for the equestrian trails. Those are not strictly horses. Those are just the only trails horses are allowed upon. There's white-tailed deer everywhere you look there. And it's a great place to take someone driving around who isn't able to hike anymore. It has got clean water for swimming. It's the only lake in North Texas I will swim in. Two great swimming beaches. If you don't like the crowds at Isle de Bois, just go across on the other side of the lake and go to the Johnson Branch. South of the park, connected to the park's trails, is the Greenbelt Trail. So creatively named, and it will take you along the Elm Fork for 10 mostly shady miles to Louisville Lakes upper end. And again, you want to take the equestrian trail option on that one. I really like Ray Roberts, and I had two gals from the Elm Fork chapter that took me there, and they were mind-blowing. Louisville Lake Environmental Learning Area, which everybody shortens to LELA, thank God. And it's located at the base of the Lake Louisville Dam. There's over 2,600 acres that straddles Eastern Cross Timbers and Blackland Prairie. So it's a great place to study the edge effect. There's over 10 miles of trails. We hope to open more soon. I sit on the board there. And we've got white-tailed deer, I mean, everywhere. Just go there in the morning. They'll be all over the Louisville Dam. There's wild turkeys, river otters, bald eagles, little tiny alligators sometimes, rare owls, and songbirds. And they have overnight camping there. So that is a superb place to camp and get your night sky watching on. So remember it during meteor showers and such. LELA has a wonderful wetness. It has a sprawling and very wild beaver pond to kayak in. It's a totally different experience than most kayaking in North Texas. There's the amazing Baturn Marsh with this wandering boardwalk and two bird blinds and fantastic lotuses, fantastic button bushes. There are wet woods with exotic pitcher type plants called green dragons. And there is great access to the Elm Fork there with fishing for humans and birds alike. And the floor show at the bottom of the dam where the outlet comes out for birding. It is, I'm not kidding, it's a floor show. It is really, at times, it's hilarious. So Bob Jones Nature Center, with its sweet civilized trails. Any place that trots through a lot of children on school trips, they're going to have really nice wide trails. And Bob Jones connects to the Walnut Grove National Recreation Trail on the south shore of Grapevine Lake. It's on Army Corps of Engineer land. The trails are made by equestrians, so they don't let off-road bikes on these trails, which is delightful. And the trails go on for miles. This is a great place to remember about hiking after big rains because it's so sandy that the rains actually help the walkability there. Clear Creek Natural Heritage Area, one of my favorite places in the universe. It's 2,900 acres of U.S. Army Corps of Engineer land in Denton along the Elm Fork, over 10 miles of trails. Lush bottomland woods. I consider these woods probably the finest bottomland woods in North Texas, but they've got some fine upland Eastern Cross Timbers woods, nice prairie parcels that don't get enough attention, vast wetlands with like multiple beaver lodges, and there's long stretches of creek and river views. It kind of reminds me a lot of the Fort Worth Nature Center, but in a way, it's a little wilder and a heck of a lot wetter because, well, you got to go there when the log jam on the Elm Fork at Highway 380 isn't so big, because when that log jam is acting up, man, it backs up water into the preserve. And this was one of those days. And it was a lot more time to go backtrack our steps than it was to just keep on going forward. Yes, there is a trail in there, I swear to God. And Clay Thurman knows this land completely. And he was able to take us through this trail in spite of the fact that it was under 3 feet of water. So it was almost up to my hips at one point on this hike, but it was very exciting to see beavers floating around in fire ant rafts and frog jelly. And it was just a great experience. I love Clear Creek. So let's talk about my neck. Clear Creek changed my life. In a car wreck on a rainy day 4.5 years ago now, doctors in the emergency room of Big Baylor near downtown Dallas discovered that I had shattered, not just broke, I shattered my C2 or second cervical vertebrae. That injury is called a hangman's fracture for its death-dealing capabilities. Actually 65% of those who incur it die right away. The rest of them are paralyzed, usually from the neck down. I am part of the 2% that managed to walk away, and I don't know how that happened. A brilliant Baylor surgeon saved my life by bolting my C1 and my C3 together with what was left of my C2. And they put in a bunch of titanium rods and screws. But the problem is that 1/4 of our balance comes from the pivot of the C1 and the C2 on each other. That's what enables you to turn your head and look over your shoulder. This is all I can do, and I'm lucky to be able to do that amount. It kind of serves as a gyroscope. It keeps your world level. So having lost 25% of my balance, I had to learn to walk again. It was pretty rough going there for months to get my balance back. I spent months in a neck brace and a walking cane. And, you know, I had been walking on pavement and on paved trails and on mowed green belts, and I just wasn't recovering my balance. But when I was in Denton, I decided to drop by Clear Creek, and I was so excited to be in nature again. I mean, it had been months, and I just bolted from the car, and I left my walking cane and my neck brace back there. And it was about 20 yards in when I realized it, because the world began to spin, and I began to realize just how little balance I had, and I stumbled and fell flat on my face, and I burst out crying because, I mean, I just didn't want fate to take hiking away from me. So I got back on my feet. I was covered in mud, and I was staggering like a drunk. You should have seen my footprints. Within a couple of miles, though, the uneven surfaces, the slopes, the slippery dirt essentially retrained my ear's vestibular system to take up the slack. I'd been in physical therapy. I didn't do that. So back home, I put away the cane and the brace for good. Now I am a relentless advocate for the health benefits of natural, not paved trails. I hit all the trails I could to complete my healing, and most of those trails are in wild DFW. But somehow, in writing the book, I forgot to mention the neck thing. So on to Collin County. There is some wild in Collin County. It was a bit of a challenge to find, but I wanted to key it around people. And so at Oak Point Preserve, I got to experience Carol Clark of the native plant wonder that she is, also monarchs and bees, and also Sally Evans, a very famous in North Texas nature educator for kids. And it was mind-blowing. That chapter is a tutorial on how to experience nature and stand up for nature. So this is a prairie remnant in the middle of Plano at Oak Point Nature Preserve. The preserve is over 800 acres in floodplains on Rowlett Creek. There's some old forests along the creek, and there is a wet meadow. This meadow here, you're going to get it off of, I think, Spring Creek Drive, where the amphitheater is. And if you'll go there in the summer, in the heat of the summer, this meadow is really wet because it's like a lot of these parks. It's a flood control basin, essentially. And there are thousands of fireflies. I mean, it is psychedelic in nature. It is tons of fun. And just learning about this prairie from Carol Clark was also just mind-blowing that it's there and what she did to make sure that it was preserved. This is Connemara Meadow Preserve, and this is a place where volunteers, a lot of them from Blackland Prairie Master Naturalists, are creating a prairie one plot at a time. So they started out with one plot that was existing prairie and it had not been tilled, and they gathered the seeds from it, and then they tilled up an area and they seeded it with that, and they dug up plants from plant rescues and they made another plot. And then when that matured and brought in seeds, they would split those. And it is just an amazing operation how they are creating a prairie from scratch. And with less than 1% of prairies left, this is how they're going to survive, is creating prairies. And there's 2 miles of mowed trails there in the 72 acres, but don't miss the riparian corridor trail. You'll see a couple of pecan trees sitting out in the middle of a field, and right near that is the entrance to the riparian trail. Really, some of the most beautiful pecans and poplars that I have ever seen. And the story of Connemara and what drove Bob Meone to do the work that he does is terribly moving. Heard Natural Science Museum and Nature Sanctuary in McKinney. Over 290 acres with over 9 miles of easy, wide trails. You start off on this soaring Austin chalk escarpment, and then you just wind your way down to these deep riparian woods. There is an astounding wetlands with a wandering boardwalk that will take you right to a viewing point for a gigantic heron estuary across the way. There are hundreds of acres of prairie there, and like Connemara, every acre was built from scratch. Go Dave Powell. And his story is also very moving in that chapter. It is full of white-tailed deer that have no fear of humans at all. I had to convince one to just, I got to go down the trail, hon. Can you let me through? And it kind of walked away and I got to pass through, but it just went on eating, So I love the herd. It's like a Whitman sampler of ecosystems in North Texas. So I bet y'all don't know this one. This is Park Hill Prairie in the northeast corner of Collin County. At its heart, it's a 300-acre park, mowed, all that kind of stuff, But at its heart is a 50-acre Blackland Prairie remnant. It is glorious, even magical. It is just like before settlement. There are hours and hours of off-trail wandering. And this is a showcase for a guy named Rich Janes, who nobody loves grasses more than this guy. And it was just marvelous to discover with him. Truly, truly beautiful time. And this is managed by Brandon Belcher of Climber Meadow, and he is working on expanding it so it's not just 50 acres. Out of the district, but I convinced Timber that we needed to include it, is Hagerman National Wildlife Refuge on Lake Texoma. It's huge, 16,000 acres, and it looks like this right now. There are 10,000 or so waterfowl and overbirds wintering there. And this display of these snow geese and Ross's geese is something that everybody should experience. There are abundant fish and crustaceans to eat. It's one reason why they go there. But the other reason is that the preserve lays out a breakfast spread. They plant about 100 acres or so in winter grains. And so the birds always have something to eat. They're not bothering the neighboring farmers. The chapter, though, is set in the off season, what they consider the off season, which is the summertime. And there is about, 25 miles of trails here. So if you're into hiking, you need to get to Hagerman because you'll find all kinds of ecosystems that you get to hike through. It's really a lot of fun. And the 2 guys that I went hiking there with, they were a blast, including birding legend Jack Childs. So if again, if you're looking, if you have somebody who can't hike anymore, they do van tours on the weekend, and the van tours are led by people who are very knowledgeable and often very funny. And there's also a self-guided auto tour. So this place is just a gift for older people who are just not wandering around anymore, or people uh, um, who have difficulty with walking or are wheelchair bound. It's a gift. It's just a gift. So let's go to Dallas County. Really, we got some good stuff. We got some good stuff. So if you mention Dallas and nature, most people will go, oh yeah, White Rock Lake. Well, I wasn't going to include it at first because I thought, and I live near it, I thought that it was all just fancy, mode and marinas and beautiful people hiking on the trails with obnoxious bicyclists who run you down. And I discovered the wild at White Rock Lake. There are wild, wet woods there, especially along Dixon Branch and its estuary bay called Sunset Bay. And that's where the bald eagles hang out. There is an old fish hatchery in the woods, which is just, as one person said, crazy with warblers during migration time. I did that one with oh gosh, I'm missing his name. But anyway, I went there with a birding legend. And then there is the spillway, which has got great bird action. And if you've just seen it driving down Garland Road, get off, get into the parking lot, come around onto the viewing spot on the dam, and you will see so much more birds. There is a terrific pollinator garden at the Bathhouse Cultural Center that is known as a hotspot for viewing hummingbirds because of the way that the master gardener selected the plants, especially for hummingbirds. There are benches on the east side where you can watch the sunset in contemplation. And there are docks on the west side where you can watch the moon rise over the lake. And it's great fun because there's this whole lunatic community that forms there every full moon. Great camaraderie. One of my favorite places is Spring Creek Forest Preserve in North Garland. There are 200 acres and 3 parcels. There's 8 miles of hiking trails. It's a magical place. It has really old trees. It's getting inducted into the Old Growth Forest Network, come up in the end of February. It is the thing that makes Spring Creek Forest different is that this land is loved. It is so loved by the volunteers, by the North Texas Master Naturalists, that when you walk that land, you feel that love. It's kind of like Sherry Capehart. You feel the love when you're at Sherry Capehart. So it is a marvelous place. One of the sections has a interpretive trail that you do little QR codes to learn more about it. And then there's a middle section with a paved parking lot with some really old trees. And then both of these 2 sections, what I really like about them is that you can just let yourself get lost. Don't worry about they're very contained. And so don't worry about a map or anything like that. Just start wandering and you will find a joy in this place, exploring it, not having to worry about anything. And then the 3rd section where I'm leading a hike on the 28th of January, it's quite wild and it has got some immense trees in it and it's all riparian woods and you've got access to the creek and there's a little bit of everything at this funny preserve in 3 parts. So you can get your rock on at Piedmont Ridge and Pleasant Grove. That's southeast Dallas County. There's about 8 miles of trails and Friends of Piedmont has just formed and we are expanding and improving the trail system there. There is something called the Cyan Overlook, and you can see all the way to Cedar Hill. You can see downtown Dallas and all the way to the southwest corner of the county. It has really nice views of the northern Great Trinity Forest, which most people don't realize it goes that far north. There is a place called the Comanche Storytelling Place, and it is a historic marvel. It is so evocative when the moon lights up the limestone, and this whole ridge is now being considered for inclusion in the Natural Historic Register of Cultural Properties for its connection to the Comanche people, who keep all of they have certified all of this as historic parts of their culture. So that's very exciting. It'll be the first in Texas. Cedar Ridge Preserve in Southwest Dallas County is where Austin Chalk, which is hard and erodes slowly, gives way to Eagle Ford Shale. And so this is why you get these immense elevation changes that the preserve is so famous for. The preserve is a major hiking destination, over 10 miles of trails, very vigorous trails. And Dallas Audubon, the nonprofit that manages it, is struggling to keep up with 600,000 visitors a year. Wow, it's supposed to be a bird sanctuary, folks. It is really, it's kind of sad. And they're trying to expand it by about 100 acres, 50 or 100 acres. And that will be, they're going to try to keep that really devoted to birds. Give them money, folks. If you go there and visit, make sure you stuff that donation box. It's kind of a sad chapter in talking about what they're having to deal with there. Stupid boombox trail runners. Okay, much more serene is across the farm to market road from that, and it's called Dogwood Canyon Audubon. There are so many birds, and they got golden cheek warblers this year. I don't know if they nested, but they had them for a while. And it is quiet enough to meditate and forest bathe, and they give you lots of benches so you can do that. It's about 200 acres. They're up to 5 miles of trails. When you get up to the top of the canyon, it's one amazing vista after another. So make sure that you plan to be there in March for the Dogwood Blends, which start off in March and go into the very beginning of April, because their new trail made by the same guy who's doing the trails at Tandy Hills, the new trails at Tandy Hills, they have a new trail that will take you right up to the dogwoods. And then when you get off that trail and you go, it'll take you around this little creek. Insane songbird action. I mean, I couldn't even hear myself speak with Julie Collins, who was taking me on this hike. I just really like that it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is to be a sanctuary. So just off Dallas County, southeast corner, it's kind of technically in Kaufman County, is John Bunker Sands Wetlands Center in Seagoville. And it is 3,100 acres. It has 1.5 miles of boardwalks, which is lovely, but there's 8 miles of trails there, folks. They really picked a wrong time to drain it for some work. And so the waterbird action there is pretty darn muted. But remember this next year, hopefully they'll have water in the cells. This place is used to purify water that they take out of the Elm Fork, which once it gets through Lake Ray Hubbard, oh, it's trashy water, really nasty. And so they take the water out of the Elm Fork, they purify it through their wetland system, and then they pipe it back to Lake Vaughn, 40 miles or so. And that's where Dallas gets its drinking water from, or some of its drinking water. It's a lovely place. Because you can walk these trails on the levees. So it's an excellent place to hike in the winter because, sun, there's no shade there. They have so many water birds when the water is there. They have river otters, spotted gar, all kinds of turtles and snakes. And they have a pair of nesting bald eagles with their own eagle cam. It is very cool. And they've been there for years. So we'll wrap up our tour with the Great Trinity Forest. It's 6,000 acres, and it's Dallas's greatest and most neglected natural assets. I get more questions about it than I do anywhere else. How can I experience it, they ask, and I say it ain't easy, and that's kind of by design, because if you can't experience someplace, you're not going to care about it. So I put it all in Wild DFW, which is one of the few places, if not the only place, where you can really get insightful information on how to hike the Great Trinity Forest. Trinity River, let's see, where are we? Trinity River Audubon Center is probably the easiest way to get to know the Great Trinity Forest on their forest trail. They've got wide, well-maintained trails. One of the secrets to that place is that there's more miles of trails than you might think. You just need to go on the little dirt trails people have made on the back of the ponds, and you can really get some mileage going there. This pecan tree is over 200 years old. I don't know how it has missed being on historic registers. I need to fix that. And there is a trail that goes up to the Trinity River, and it has a lovely overlook of the Trinity River. One of the few places where you can just sit on a bench and watch the Trinity River. Then you've got the Trinity Forest Trail, which is a paved trail. And it comes out of a parking lot that's on the entrance road to the Trinity River Audubon. And few people use this trail. And if you go one way, it'll take you deep into the woods, and that section often floods out because these people don't know how to make trails, for God's sake. They just do not have a clue about hydrology and nature. But if you go the other way, that one stays pretty dry, and it will skirt the McComas Bluff Preserve, which is a very wild place, and it will take you on this pedestrian bridge that goes right over the Trinity River. And that's pretty rare here in Dallas. Y'all got plenty of Trinity bridges, but in Dallas, we got few. And so it's one of the few places where you can actually get and look down upon the river. And then when you go past that river, past that bridge, you'll be in this area with some of the biggest pecan trees and bur oaks that I have ever seen. They keep it mowed, which is weird, but it's a lovely kind of quasi old growth forest there. It's lovely. It's a nice trail to remember if you're in Dallas and you just need to walk on pavement for a while. If you're willing to go wild, but let's see. Thanks to volunteers from the North Texas Master Naturalists and others, the natural trail unpaved sections of the Ned and Jeannie Fritz Texas Buckeye Trail are rocking once again. And this takes place in an area that we're starting to call the Bonton Woods for the community that's nearby. I took some television reporters there, and they were absolutely blown away that you're 10 minutes from downtown Dallas and you can see deer wandering around. It's very wild woods. But if you're willing to go wild, which is a category of trails in the book, there's lots of off-trail wandering through the Bonton Woods. And this is Bonton Pond, which is also called Bart Simpson Lake because it looks like his head in the Google aerial photos. But very wild, and we're putting in some new trails back there, which will be some of the wildest trails in Dallas County for sure. My favorite trail is the Holland Trail. I'm going this Friday. Yay. It's a near perfect example of bottomland woods, of Great Trinity Forest. And the Virginia wild rye, I mean, gets as high as your hips. And with luck, I want you to use the Outdoor Explorer Texas app, which is a great app. They're trying to make a trail app for naturalists, which is a great idea. A couple of gals from Dallas, Outdoor Explorer Texas, and they show the little segue, the little side trail that will take you to the White Rock Creek confluence, which to me is the heart of the forest. And my relationship with White Rock Creek and my efforts to get to this confluence is kind of a continuing thread in the book. It has just tremendous beauty. Then you can go to Goat Island Preserve in Southeast Dallas. It's a large trunk of the Great Trinity Forest between the river and a tall dike. It's so easy to disappear there. Once you're past the dike, the world just disappears. There are huge trees, pileated woodpeckers, tremendous river views with benches, and they've just opened up since the book came out So it's not in the book, but there are trails on Goat Island itself now. And those are particularly good for birding. And they will take you right up next to the river. And you can see the nesting bald eagles, which live at the Southside Water Treatment Plant across the river. It's a tremendous place. And you'll read about Joe Johnson and his incredible river knowledge. He built every trail there almost by himself. Grief trail making is what I call it. But none of these places, not a single one, would be possible without hours and hours of effort by volunteers. Even at the state parks, even at the local parks, they're the ones, you folks, you know this, that make these places special, that bring out their innate natural beauty. You're the ones who alert the officials that something's wrong. You are the first line of defense that these parks have. And I think of this book, Wild DFW, as an extended love letter to these people. I call these people, they're the kind of people who plant trees they'll never sit under the shade of. Their altruism floors me. And when I'm feeling down in the dumps, man, I go hang out with naturalists, because it's just hard to be depressed or down when you're around people like y'all. You make the world a better place. And I am so grateful. I'm so grateful that I discovered the Master Naturalists and Audubon and native plants and native prairies. And y'all have really enriched my life. You helped me through the neck wreck. You have been just very important to me. And I love you all, man. I love you all. Really, seriously, I'm verklempt. Okay, on to the conclusion. I hope I've enthused you about North Texas nature. Nature has no expectations of us. It wants nothing from us. It has nothing to sell us. Nature is not impressed by us at all. And that's kind of the antidote to hubris, isn't it? Being in nature helps us find the core of who we are. Just walking these trails with folks like you really bond, because you can find the core of who you are when you're outdoors in nature like this. And I've made lifelong friendships in the writing of this book and being a part of this community. It's really a gift. Nature is truly a gift. The neutral environment of nature is something that I wish everyone could understand how valuable it is. So I want you to visit the book website. It's wild-dfw.com. Such an interesting story about that dash. And go to the community page, because every person, if they have a website, every group, every preserve, all of them have a link on the community page broken down by chapter. You'll find all these links for them. There's also a page for all the photographers that you have seen going through here. None of them are professionals, but their work is definitely professional quality. And so you can go to the photographers page and you can click on links and you can see more of their stuff. Really, really fantastic. If you will, and then there's a page there for all the walks and talks that I've got coming up this year. And if you would please like the Wild DFW pages at Facebook and Instagram, and you'll see a few posts a week about the North Texas nature groups, including y'all. And if you liked this talk, there's a half a dozen or so more that I give that are quite different from this one. And I think that does it. So happy to answer questions and share with me where you like to hike locally. There are some places that I did not get into the book just for space constraints. So I'd love to hear where you go. All righty. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Amy. You really do know how to turn a word. Is that the correct expression?
That'll work.
Okay, or spin a word. I don't know.
I'm afraid.
Of course, I can't write and I can't talk. My blood pressure went down, and listening to you, and those photographs were absolutely gorgeous. They are
Stunning. Yes.
um, wonderful.
We've
We
had,
have,
we've
we have
had
some questions.
we've had quite a few questions, and I'm looking at the last one, of course. If folks go to that website, wild-dfw.com, can they order your book online?
Oh yes, there's a buy page there with a number of options. It also lists all of the brick and mortar stores you can find it at. And then there's a number of online options for ordering. And if you want it custom signed, there's a way to order it directly from me. Costs an extra $5 postage, but if you want it custom signed to someone, that's the way to do it.
Okay.
Pretty Things is an online operative based out of Dallas, very eco-minded, and they have some just plain signed books there. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely.
And I usually have the books with me. Well, they're in my car at all times.
Yeah.
And so whenever I'm doing a talk that's live, I'll have the books with me or a walk.
I'll start reading the questions. The first one was, you said you would talk to the Fort Worth Parks Department. Is that going to be recorded?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think it's more of just a talk with employees. It's a perk that they do. They offer a talk for employees, I think once a month. And I'll be talking with them about geology. Because it is the unique geology of North Texas that creates all of our ecosystems, all of our soils, everything else. And it all is because East Texas sank millions of years ago.
Very good. Have you spoken to any high schools?
I have not, although I've been invited to do a workshop for Highland Park High School. For some reason, Highland Park has taken a liking to me. And but I'm interested in speaking to high schools, and I have been speaking to some of the larger homeschool groups, which I don't know nothing about kids, but we've been having a fun time.
Sure.
It's just
There's a
delightful.
question about the drying. I think this is about the Viridian Lakes. Do you know where the Viridian Lakes get their water from?
I think it's almost all rainfall capture, but there's got to be a creek feeding it somehow. I really loved the expression when I was talking with an Arlington official when I said, you know, if Ned Fritz hadn't stopped the Trinity River Barge Canal, you wouldn't have Viridian.
Right.
Right.
There was some discussion about the drying beds and whether the water was taken out of the drying beds, I think.
Yeah.
I'm told that sometimes they take some of the water out and they send it to a golf course. But I've also talked with someone who in the water department who is really trying hard to get the water levels consistent in there because I mean, that's what they need. They need to be consistent. It used to be, according to Charlie Amos, one of the top birding spots in the nation. And if it were managed well as a nature spot, not just as an incidental nature spot, you'd see a lot of traffic. And I think it would really add to the River Legacy complex over there if it were a little bit better known, with an entrance that's marked. That'd be nice, because the parking's pretty good. But if it was kept consistent and that way the birds would, he explained to me something else about why the birds don't come there as much as they used to anymore. But it is definitely a gold mine of nature tourism potential. And Arlington needs to get it together about that.
So the city of Arlington.
Amy,
owns the
Amy,
Viridian Lakes.
Amy, I work for the city of Fort Worth. I work for Village Creek Water Reclamation Facility, and that's the city of Fort Worth property. Who did you speak to about that? Do you remember his name?
No, it was a female, and it was they were with the water company.
City of Fort Worth Water?
I can't remember now that you say it. I can't remember if it was Arlington or Fort Worth that she mentioned.
Was it Maria Wang by chance?
I can't remember. It would be in
Okay.
my notes, and that's I would have to crash this program to access that on my laptop.
Well, I'm just curious because that doesn't sound right to me because we send reclaimed water over to the golf courses, but we get it from our plant, not from the drying beds. So
I see.
I'm gonna look into that a little more because that does not sound right. I don't know, I'm not in charge of that, but that doesn't sound right to me. But
Okay.
if you could remember the name of the engineer or whoever it was, that would be helpful too.
Drop me a line through my website because I would like to get a little bit of clarity on this.
Okay.
When people exchange information, it tends to degrade as it gets passed from person to person.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, I can tell you this much. They definitely don't, they don't want it to become park-like. I mean, that is still a working wastewater treatment plant facility, quote unquote.
yes, that's what I've
So
been told is that, yeah, they
it's
still use
not,
it from
yeah,
time to
we can't
time.
manage it exactly for that, but I still, that doesn't sound right that they're taking it for reclaimed water. I'd like to confirm that because
Okay.
that sounds odd to me.
Okay.
Because I know anyway, I don't want to hog the question time, but I will do that.
I would like to see it, the Bunker Sands Wetland Center has managed to get that sweet spot of being a working facility, and yet at the same time, it's very much open to the public, does a lot of education, and it would be wonderful to see Village Creek kind of stepping up to that level and
Yeah.
still
But
being
we
a
still have heavy equipment moving through there. I mean, I know this because it just sometimes it's just not the best. Yeah, I don't think they'll go that direction just
Hmm,
because we still use that area
yeah.
for
I know
certain.
Bunker Sands does from time to time close to visitors so that they can do some operations like that.
Yeah, well,
So maybe there's a way that, both can be done, but I get that it's municipal land and big equipment but what a jewel. What a
oh,
jewel.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's also kind of nice that it's a little hidden gem too.
I kind of like that too, but I think there's not enough nature in Arlington. And River Legacy is working on reclaiming some of their natural areas, and that's really exciting news. But I'd like to see Arlington kind of step up with nature.
Yeah.
Well, I think you mean the city of Arlington, Amy. We have 6 or more pollinator gardens that our members maintain and work with in the different city parks. So,
Mhm.
our master naturalists in Arlington are very active. We just got to light a fire under the city of Arlington.
And there's some lovely little parks in Arlington. I'll be doing a story sometime in the spring for Green Source DFW about the Blackland Prairie Park and Thora Hart and Molly Holler. And there's some really neat parks, but you can tell that they are an expression of the volunteers that work there.
Well, absolutely. And when you're ready to have someone go with you through Molly Holler, she was one of our founding members and no longer here, is no longer able to attend, but we've got, I don't know, 10 or so volunteers there.
Sweet. I've been following them for years. I've always been just so deeply impressed with the passion and what they're doing there at Molly Holler. It's really inspiring. And then of course, Southwest Nature Preserve, boy, Arlington has really done well with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those folks have their own friends group and they do
Mhm.
monthly hikes also.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to bringing more attention to them and going
Good.
to the Blackland Prairie Park, which I discovered is in an industrial district. Okay, let's go see.
A mention here, please come and see O.S. Gray Natural
Yes.
Area in Arlington.
Yes, that's on my list.
Good,
I
good,
have them all marked on my Google Maps.
good, good.
Yeah.
You've got several people saying thank you and for your presentation, that you're very inspiring, that gives us new places to visit.
Mhm.
I happen to have some young grandchildren in Plano, and as soon as my daughter lets me drive them somewhere, I will take them to Oak Point Park.
Oh, that prairie in the spring, it is so delightful. Yeah.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. I have one other selfish question, Amy.
Mhm.
Would you don't have to answer now, but if we contact you in a couple months about presenting DFW geology to our 2024 trainees, we sure would be happy to have you do a presentation with our trainees.
Oh,
So
sure. It's a fun presentation.
Oh,
It's
that would be a great idea.
not just about, at least the talk that I do, which is 45 minutes, is not just about geology, but also about the edge effect and how North Texas is an ecotone. Because we are where the great eastern deciduous forest transitions to the western plains.
uh-huh.
That transition happens here in North Texas, and it has to do with rainfall changing. It has to do with some of the geology stuff. But anytime you have an edge, like an ecotone like that, you're going to have more diversity. And then you've got three different ecosystems, at least ecoregions that create more edges. And
Mm-hmm.
then the Eastern Cross Timbers is nothing but edge, so it's an exploration of that idea that edge is where the action is.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Not for Amy, but thank you, Deanne. One more time, if you'd like to pay your dues by check, Deanne has put her address into the chat. 2843 County Road 3838, Bridgeport 76426. And email her so she knows that a check is coming at treasurer@ctmn.org. Thank you, Deanne, for putting that in there. I think we're about done. Does anybody want to unmute yourself and ask another question or make an announcement?
Oh, and I forgot to mention that Brett Franklin was
Yes,
online, and he also contributed photos to the book.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Didn't mean to miss you, Brett.
It's okay. I won't let it go to my head.
Thank you. They were wonderful photos.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Mary Beth, Amy, again, thank you so much. I knew you you'd worked through the neck issue. I wasn't as clear on what all happened, and we're very grateful that you made it through that. We're also grateful you could Zoom with us after having another health scare last fall. So
that was interesting.
that was totally different, I understand. So
That was low blood sodium levels, which was kicked off by me leading a hike in 103-degree weather without doing the right electrolyte drinks.
oh, that's not too good.
No, it's not. And I learned my lesson that one. I always swig it down before I go, and I take some with me.
Good.
Yeah.
Mary Beth, will you tell us what's coming up in February?
Absolutely. We have one of our very own members, excuse me, Khaki Cunningham, one of our own, who's going to talk to us about monarch tagging, migration, and the life cycle of the monarch. And Khaki is an expert about monarchs. So
Yes.
you don't want to miss that.
That will be the third Monday in February.
That's February 19th.
19th. Hopefully we'll have good weather since we call it stock show weather over here, Amy. When they schedule the stock show parade, it will be freezing. So that's sort of an annual thing. And then in March, we'll have our awards ceremony and our certification and recertification, and everybody's invited to that. So anyway, I don't know what I'm about to say. So I'll stop talking and thank everybody for attending this meeting by Zoom. and hope you're able to get back outdoors as soon as the weather warms up. Thank you.
All right. Grateful for the invite, and thanks everybody for staying tuned.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
you.
y'all.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.